Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Confidence Conversations podcast. And this one's for you if you've ever said, I'm a people pleaser. I wish I wasn't a people pleaser, or that person's a people pleaser. Anything to do with people pleasing, then this is the episode for you. And I'm joined by the wonderful Chris Mooney, who is a therapist, coach, and a fabulous learning and development expert. And we have a really deep and honest chat about people pleasing and how it impacts confidence. So we explore what it really means to be a people pleaser, how it shows up in our lives, especially in the workplace, and of course, how it links to confidence and impacts it has. We talk about boundaries and the guilt of saying no. Chris shares some really brilliant insights from his therapy work, and we talk about how self-awareness and those small shifts can make a real big difference. So if you've ever found yourself saying yes when what you really wanted to scream was no, or you've felt that familiar twinge of resentment after overcommitting, this is the episode for you. Enjoy. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. And today I'm delighted to welcome Chris Mooney into the studio. That sounds really fancy, doesn't it? And we're going to have a conversation about people pleasing, which I'm really excited about. So welcome, Chris. It's lovely to see you.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I know who will be excited about this episode, and we'll give them a quick shout out, and that's Emily and Alan from Yellow Tuxedo, because that's where you and I originally met. So they'll be very excited
Hello,
to see us,
Emily and Alan
together,
Hello.
Which is brilliant. So
look,
before we get into our main conversation, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
All right. Apologies in advance, listeners, for a little frog in my throat, little end of a cold cough I might have today. My career really started in learning and development 25 plus ish years ago, and that's what I know. That's what I love. That's what I've worked hard to kind of become a bit of an expert in. I started my own business in 2012. Can't believe that was 13 years ago. Yeah, more than now. Really at that time, it was to focus on and specialize in mindset and resilience and well-being. I would see that certainly saw that as a huge gap in terms of what organizations would offer their people when it comes to staying strong and keeping resilient. And then what hit in 2020, that gave us all a bit of thinking time, and it really just gave me the opportunity to also train and qualify as a therapist as well. And since then, I suppose the learning and development side of the business has equally kind of developed to offer much more mental health and well-being support now as well. So essentially that's what I do. It's some coaching like yourself as well, but learning and development, and then I've got my own private practice therapy business alongside that as well.
I think kind of as coaches, counsellors, therapists, learning and development, I think we all do a mixture of all of, clearly I don't do counselling, but I think we all do learning and development with something else, or coaching with learning and development, and I love the mix that it gives you, seeing that maybe the people in the room or online much prefer face-to-face sessions, but because my background is learning and development as well, which was where we kind of originally connected. So
it was.
I love that we're able to
I love the variety as well.
Me too. I love that we're still able to
it's
do
like
that.
It's like tomorrow, I think it is. It's like I've got a virtual workshop in the morning, and then seeing my therapy clients in the afternoon into the evenings. It just keeps it really different.
Yes, and I also think there are lots of things you take from your practice, whether that's coaching or therapy, through to kind of the workshops, don't you? And you're able to share to a point, clearly not the confidential stuff, but I think you learn from each different scenario that you can take into as well as building your own confidence. I think you learn so much from these different environments.
I think so, and I'm guessing I know what one of your first questions might be about confidence, but for me, I think isn't that what confidence is kind of about? Is that being okay with not knowing everything, and also being okay with that constant development, like learning and development and therapy. One of the things I love most about both worlds is that the options for development are just never ending.
Yeah.
So like continuous professional development, call it what you want, it's like, you know, there's just no end to it.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that I love I don't like the word journey, but I love the learning adventure. So, right, the stuff that you learn along the way. For me, it isn't always about the certificate or the result or because I'm often doing it for me, because I want to learn and because I'm curious, and I know the more I learn, the more it will benefit. But and for me, often it's not about being the expert necessarily. It's about just having a bit of knowledge, to maybe feel more confident, actually.
Yeah, and knowledge, understanding even of ourselves, of what makes us tick. I think, just so much learning can come from that. Yeah,
definitely. So let's go into the first question then. Before we get onto people pleasing, how do you define confidence?
I think for me, going off what I've just said about confidence, I think for me, it's that feeling of I've got this or I'm good enough. I think because I knew that you and I wanted to chat a bit around people pleasing today, is that so much of confidence comes down to how worthy we feel, our levels of self-worth. Like we've just been talking about, not necessarily knowing the direction, but knowing that we'll get there. Not necessarily having all the answers, but knowing that whatever happens, we'll handle it.
Yeah,
and that's confidence for me.
Yeah, and my version's pretty much the same. This kind of self-trust that you have that whatever happens, you'll be okay.
Yeah,
you know, trust the outcome, trust the process a little bit, and whatever happens.
Yes.
And Vanda, who we both know, one of the favourite things that she says to me is always, you know, you either succeed or you learn.
Yes,
and I
love that
because it's true, isn't it? You know, and it's just that slight mindset reframe, isn't it? Of, well, you either succeed or you learn.
Yeah, one of my favourites is practice makes progress. It's like just to constantly, just evolution, right?
Definitely. Practice makes progress. I love that. So define for us then, in the context, I guess, of confidence, how you would describe people pleasing.
All right, yes, people pleasing, something so many of us do. And I guess in a nutshell, for me, it's that element of putting the needs and the comfort of others consistently above our own, often to the detriment of our own comfort. I think that's, in a summary kind of bubble, doing for others because we feel that we have to. It's doing for others so that we can get back that love or that acknowledgement or that worthiness, that feeling of worthiness from people. It's being surprised when the yes comes out of our mouth, when inside we're screaming no and walking away and kicking ourselves of why did I say yes? Why didn't I say no? So not standing, call it what you want, but not standing by our boundaries or standing up for our values or whatever. There's something there where we're just putting ourselves out there for others before ourselves.
And who does it?
Have you done it?
I'm going to say yes, but maybe more I do it.
Good.
Well,
I've done it.
I guess we all do it, don't we?
Yeah. Not now, like necessarily, but we're all on the cheesy journey, like you said. But I think just anyone and everyone, I think levels of self-awareness can start to come in here. But it's, tongue in cheek, you've done it, I've done it. We've all done it. It's something that's really not limited by age or by gender or by background or anything like that. I think when we start to think about who does it and why do we do it, we can't talk about that without making a little bit of a stop by childhood. Our formative years, and particularly those of us who felt that in order to get that love, it was conditional on being good, on being the good one, on doing what I've been told, on getting the good grades, and then that creates another little string down the high achievement perfectionism road, which over the years our experiences solidify and concrete and influence our reactions, our responses to the next time. So now, fully formed grown-ups, we do this stuff without even thinking. So it's, we can find ourselves in a caring profession such as teachers, healthcare, social workers, therapists, coaches, whoever. We might have an element of attachment issues going on, or some trauma that we're either processing or not processing. And then I think, just in terms of something else I see, particularly in the learning and development space as well, are many of us who struggle with confrontation, conflict, can absolutely have an element of people pleasing. I think that there's so many different reasons why we do it, which I think is why it's a topic that speaks to so many of us as well, because for so many of us, we hear it and we go, oh yeah, that's me, I do that. Why do I do that? Yeah,
and it's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's so many, like you said, there's so many reasons linked back to childhood, could be linked to, because when you asked me the question, have I done it, the answer is yes, of course it's yes. But I would say,
I interrupted.
No, not at all. I would say it's more, I did it more in my corporate life. You're right. And funnily enough, client just before you this morning, we were talking about the conflict model.
And which one?
The Thomas Kilmann one. Although I couldn't remember that at the time, because like when you're under pressure, I was like, I can't remember what it's called.
I always forget how to spell Kilmann.
I could see it, and it was related to something else. But we talked about compromising. And actually, I wonder whether there's an element of the compromising. If you can Google the Thomas Kilmann conflict model, and I'm sure there are others out there as well. But in the middle, it talks about compromising, and I'm sure in there it probably should say underneath in brackets people pleasing, because I think that can be where the compromising gets us to.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point, because like compromise for me, the compromising spot of the 5 on that one, and like, give and take, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of vibe. But even the avoidance style of conflict is like, it's a necessary style. I think that's what we don't talk about enough, is that sometimes it's absolutely the right thing and the best thing to go around the conflict rather than face it head on. It's just that when we lean on, like, there's pros and cons to each of the styles. I don't need to tell you that, but when we lean on that one too much, something's got to give when it comes to people pleasing.
Yeah, interesting. So you said something as well that I just want to pick up on. I'm going completely off the script of questions here, so sorry for that.
Oh, no.
But we talked about people pleasing. When I asked you, how do you describe it? And then who does it, which you answered. But you said, actually, it's not gender specific. And I'm really interested in that, because I wonder if you asked people who does more people pleasing, they'd probably say women. I just think they would.
Probably.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The instinctive suspicion is that it's probably more women are people pleasers. I have nothing to be other than my what's the word when it's not factual?
Yeah, just your observations and your
there's a word for it, and
it'll come to you.
It will come to me, but it's on the tip of my tongue. But through the clients that I see, the people that I work with, and I work with a lot of men in therapy as well. And I think that I'm speaking for myself now. But as a man, I can be, we're pretty good at locking this stuff down, compartmentalizing, I'm generalizing hugely, but just not being as expressive. I also see a theme on the therapy side of things when it comes to finally feeling able and being able, wanting to help ourselves with things like this. I think there are, not to say that men don't do that. As I say, I work with a lot of men clients in therapy, but women seem to get there a little bit earlier, perhaps,
it's
than us
interesting, isn't
men.
it? Because
Yeah,
because again, like like you in my coaching practice, I work with men, and we talk about confidence, and we talk about navigating tricky situations, all of the stuff that I talk about with my female clients. But I think
yeah,
there's this I don't know, this feeling that we automatically assume that women, we might look at someone and go, oh yeah, she's a people pleaser. I don't think we'd look at a
yeah,
guy and go, oh, he's a people pleaser necessarily, like we would a woman.
yeah,
It's fascinating.
yeah.
If anybody's got any observations, or they can point us in the facts of any stats, let us know.
Yes,
It'd be really interesting.
yes.
So tell us, you've already talked about one, which is where we say yes, but inside we're screaming no. But what would be some of the signs of people pleasing?
So yeah, there's that automatic yes when we want to say no. I think something I alluded to, I think when I said that, is that just to go into it a bit more in terms of a sign. And it's something that we are adept at suppressing. We just push it down, we just ignore the physiological signs. But it's that little feeling of resentment, maybe after the yes or after agreeing to things, that starts to bubble up. I think that can be a sign of if we can get better at starting to tune in to the signals that our brain is sending, firing throughout our body constantly. For a protection mechanism, we kind of just get really good at cutting all that off. It's exhaustion from overcommitting. We start to think about elements of, why am I so tired all the time? Why am I, well, maybe we're approaching the risk of burnout. We're constantly in this high state of stress or hypervigilance and readiness awareness, and that runs us down over time. I think it's difficulty in being able to express our thoughts or our feelings. So when we start to bring in the conflict element now, when we disagree, that sign could be that it's agree. Not I don't mean doing as agreeing, but it's saying that we agree with people. When inside we're screaming, no, I feel differently. I feel, but unable to voice that. Boundaries I've mentioned once already. Pardon me. I think struggling to either set or maintain boundaries in our relationships, be it personal or professional, can be another big sign. Where people just just trample over anything looking like a boundary, and more importantly, perhaps we let them.
Yes,
we let them do that. Yeah.
Boundaries are so important. There is another podcast episode that I did with Emma Jenkins, I think in maybe series 1 or series 2, maybe it was series 2, or maybe it was even 3, who knows. There is another one with Emma about boundaries.
So many
we talked a lot about, we have this feeling of, well, that person's just crossed a boundary, but actually we didn't share what our boundaries were with that person. So how would they know?
Yeah.
But you're right, this feeling of, but this idea of this feeling of resentment. So if we're feeling all of that inside, what stops us from saying no?
What stops us from saying no? The fear of disapproval is coming to me first. The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, and I think what you were just saying there in terms of struggling to stand by our boundaries, is that over a long period of time, a really nice way I like to try and think about it, and I often say this when this comes up with clients, is what the problem with always putting everyone else first is that you've taught them and yourself that you come last. And I think it's just that constant message that we're telling ourselves that my needs don't matter, or certainly my needs do not matter as much as your needs.
So how do you work somebody through that? I think I would agree with you that I think you're absolutely right that there's this fear of rejection, judgment. I'm hearing the word abandonment a lot at the moment in few contexts. But how do you start to work somebody through that in therapy?
Slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slowly.
Well, it's deep, isn't it,
And
as
yeah,
well?
yeah. This stuff runs so deep, and you might not be surprised. So some people might be surprised, even in the workshops that I do. Albeit it's a very different vibe, and you need to set up the psychological safety very differently with a group context than one to one or individually. But this stuff, it so runs deep, I believe that, and it bubbles up when we're not expecting it as well. So I think that loads of different types of therapy out there. My type, my style is boring term called humanistic integrative. So integrative just means there's a few different theories that I'm trained on that I can mix and match depending on what's presented. But the humanistic part being that the relationship is central, that the client is always in control, that we are the masters of our own destiny, that we're the experts on ourselves. So it's never about telling a client what I think they should do or judging them like everyone else in their world judges them. So I think in terms of how we begin to work on that through therapy, is, as I say, slowly but surely. Sometimes clients come to therapy and they know, they're like, Chris, I'm a massive people pleaser. Let's get into it. It's like, okay, that's one fork in the road. That's one path. Other times it's a slow process of building the relationship, creating that trust between us, and sometimes merely just reflecting things back can be enough for us as clients in therapy. I'm a client of therapy myself, to go, oh shit, I'm just hearing myself out loud saying this, and God, why do I do that? And then you can start to get into it in a different way. So I think just starting to maybe tune into those, like I say, those physiological signals that we're picking up on, noticing some of the physical sensations. What I'll sometimes ask clients to do, and this works brilliantly when we see each other every week, is that I'll maybe ask them just over the week, just track your responses over the week, track how often you say yes and no over the week, and let's get into that next week. When you say yes, what feelings did you have? What feelings came up for you after you agreed to do that? Look for patterns in your relationships. Are you always the giver? Are your relationships two-way? If you had to give them a ratio of 50-50 or 80-20, or 20-80, where would you sit in your relationships?
The tracker
a few
thing
different
is
ways to get into
fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like immediately you're raising someone's awareness, aren't you, of when you're saying yes. And I wonder how often people might come back and go, I thought I was doing it a lot, but actually I'm doing it way more than I thought I was. And some of those feelings are really interesting.
The times when we're not, or maybe we're not saying no, and that looks different in context, doesn't it? So no to somebody asking us to do something. It's about saying no when we disagree with something that somebody's telling us, perhaps, but also leveraging the strength of that. So what gave you the confidence? What was it about that relationship, for example, where you felt able to say, let me think about it and get back to you, rather than diving straight in?
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because I wonder then whether there are different people that bring out different responses, like everything, different people that bring out different responses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like, I'm just thinking about my personal relationships and professional relationships. So many moving parts there, right? Is that history and experience that you've gone through, shared and otherwise, obligation. If you think about our family, for better and worse, our sense of tie, and that phrase, you do for family. Okay, well, right.
And then I'm also thinking about what comes with the corporate piece as well, right? Because there'll be people that feel, and I'm probably, well, I'm talking about myself here, aren't I? But I think there's a sense of, oh, if I say no, will it be career limiting? You know, all of those kind of things. And I'm doing it because that's because that's what comes with my title and my job title in this box that I've been put in this label I've been given. And then I mean, we could probably talk for a whole day about who brings out different senses, you know, different emotions in us, I suppose, as well, isn't it, in terms of who we people please with more and where we don't. And then I wonder whether I'm going slightly off here, but I wonder whether there's a link, isn't there, between maybe procrastination, people pleasing, one feeds the other, and in that sense then nothing gets done, and then this massive sense of resentment just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles until something goes pop.
Something goes pop, for sure. I think for me, it's really interesting to hear you talk about the professional side as well. And we, you know, you've seen in the camera, like I'm doing this set of skills with my hands. I think maybe COVID showed us more than other recent times how we just drag our whole selves to work. You know, so what I mean by that is that what we've got going on, or what we've had going on in our past, in our history, like that doesn't, you know, that old horrible phrase, leave it at the door, you know, that doesn't happen. It's like we show up as our whole selves at work. And so, it is really interesting. I think that I see it a lot in the corporate context of people going for much longer, much farther than is healthy for them from a well-being perspective, carrying the stress and the pressure. What's really interesting is that hopefully most of us, or most of us listening, have had that moment in our career where we've been brave and courageous enough to open up and to say to somebody that we're struggling, and to just feel that release of pressure from our shoulders. And the world hasn't ended. The world doesn't end. If anything, hopefully people say something like, why didn't you tell me earlier? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because this need for us to stay strong and to show up, and what if, and the spiral, what will people think? Procrastinations, and really, again, we could probably do a different episode on procrastination, but absolutely, I think that can often be a stress driver, or it can show up, you know, where there's those levels of anxiety, even depression, where there's that element of, you know, often we beat ourselves up for something like procrastination, like, why can't I just do this? But so often there's something at a much deeper level stopping us.
And sometimes that's I've just completed some imposter syndrome coach training, which I love, because this is all in there as well, isn't it? The perfectionism piece as well, and the people pleasing piece for imposter syndrome is all about, what if I don't do it, I can't be found out that I'm a fraud, you know. Which is really interesting. And to say to somebody, well, you know, good is good enough isn't good enough if you're a proper perfectionist and you want to people please at the same time. There's so much wound up in this, isn't there?
Totally.
So one question I've got for you is, people might say, oh, well, you know, I'm not a people pleaser, I'm just being kind, I'm just being nice. What's the difference for you?
That's great. I was like, love it. Be kind. It's like, we need, oh God, don't get me started. We need so much more kindness in this world, especially at the moment. I think there is a difference, and it is sometimes quite a subtle line in the sand. I think kindness comes from choice and maybe abundance, whereas people pleasing tends to come from much more a place of fear and scarcity. So kindness, when we're being kind, we're including ourselves in the equation. Whereas when we're people pleasing, we're discounting ourselves and our needs. Being nice and being kind does not stop us from maintaining healthy boundaries in our relationships. Whereas people pleasing, we abandon our boundaries for the needs of others. Kindness we can sustain, people pleasing So there's, again, I'm doing that sentence. It's the theme. I'm doing the skills again with my hands. But, when we're being nice people can say no in a respectful way.
Exactly. And
as arguably in an assertive way that, maintains both needs. Go on.
I was just going to say, I did the Dare to Lead training from Brené Brown. I did it with Melissa Haig a couple of years ago. It's brilliant.
Love Brené Brown.
Yeah. And one of my favourite quotes from Dare to Lead is "Clear is kind," and that in the absence, I can't remember the whole quote. It's fabulous, but that often what we do is we avoid telling the truth to somebody in the guise of being kind, but actually what we're doing is we're not being kind because we're tiptoeing around not telling them the truth, when actually it's clearer to tell them the truth.
And we're doing absolutely, we're not only doing them a disservice, we're doing ourselves a disservice in that as well. So I think we will, there's this thing about, well, it's, I can't possibly disagree with them, or I can't possibly give them any, some constructive feedback or whatever. Again, bringing it back maybe to the workplace. Again, I say to quite a lot of my clients, quite a lot of the time, like, no is a complete sentence. It's like there's no, no, we can say no. And I think something perhaps we haven't touched on yet today is so often we'll, but you might have people listening say, oh, I don't have an issue saying no. Often it's then we back that no up with an apology. So I know you posted about this recently, didn't you? And I commented, it's like we go, oh, I'm really sorry, but no, I can't do that. Or unfortunately, it's like, oh, why are you saying that? Or I'm afraid. It's like, are you really scared? It's like, you're probably not scared. So we either apologize or we over explain our no.
Yes. And then the no gets lost, right? So my post that you talked about was, in actual fact, here's a full disclaimer, right? That post was actually from a couple of years ago, and it was my best post ever on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
And I went on holiday, so I was like, oh, I haven't really got time to do any more posts. I'll just repost that. And it's the best post for ages. And it talks about stop saying that bit that makes you small. And you're right. Yeah. We say no and we go, oh, and I'm really sorry, but, and then that all gets lost. I remember a retail director once saying to me, and excuse my language, but he said, anything before but is bullshit. Because actually what happens is anything you say before that point, before that but, everybody forgets. You almost negate any confidence. I feel really confident, but, okay, now you're telling me you don't feel really confident. And I think this is a big thing, isn't it? We say, like you said, no is a full sentence. Why then go on to make the thing that makes you small or then gets that message completely lost in translation? But we all do it. And we're all guilty of that. It's not until we stop and think. Yeah, we are. I can see on my emails, I've just had somebody that says, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to cancel. And then it goes on to say, I don't normally cancel. And that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Yeah. No justification needed with me. It's all good. But we're all guilty of that. Yeah, I'm saying no. Yeah.
I think, just picking up on it's, we all do it. And like I commented the week before last, it's like I did it the week before last. That's why it was so fresh in my mind, because I was at the airport and. I think what was it? It was the airlines mixed up with the times and what it was showing on my phone, and immediately I just went into, oh, I'm really sorry, but this is it's probably me, but down that road. I think my point being, if we notice ourselves doing it, I think that's important. It's like not to kick ourselves. Or like, oh, why did I do that? It's like, the first step is noticing it, and then we can be aware of it and work on it, do something with it. But totally agree with your director feedback that you got years ago. It's like often in workshops, I'll say it a different way. Whereas, totally, everything before the but is a lie. Yeah. But we say, I hear what you're saying. I see where you're coming from, always with a but or a fancy but, however, or a but in a tuxedo or all there or whatever. But let me tell you why. Let me over explain. Yeah.
And we don't need to do any of that. It's like there are lots of words, aren't there, that make us small, that make us, that do that. I'm just is another one. It's just me.
Yeah.
Hi, it's just Gail.
Yeah.
I don't know why we do this when we're on the phone.
Yeah.
Hi, that's so strange, isn't it?
Hi.
Hi, it's just, that kind of thing. So tell me then, Chris, what's one practical thing somebody could do right now to help their people pleasing?
One thing. I think, oh, that's good. That's good. I've probably got about half a dozen things coming to me. If I had to pin it down to one thing, check your motivation. I think check your motivation. Why are you saying yes? Flip that. Why aren't you being honest? Why aren't you speaking up? So in terms of checking your motivation, that's very value based kind of way of looking at it. Is like what's driving you to do it? What is it that's going to happen if you were to say no? If you were to put yourself first?
Yeah. And if we were to say no, how do we handle the guilt that's going to inevitably come with that?
Oh, the guilt. Oh, the guilt. The guilt. There is going to be guilt. There will be guilt. Spoiler alert. And again, it's such a nice thing to be able to work alongside therapy clients with, in terms of that guilt and how it presents initially and how it does dissipate and fade over time. I think the element of guilt, well, first and foremost, like I say, like I joked about there, is that they just accept that there will be guilt. And why wouldn't there be? After such a long period, years and years of built up patterns, where I'm picking, where I'm wiring, of starting to just not always. This isn't about suddenly becoming, it's maybe another one of our final important points, that people pleasing isn't about becoming this bullshit person who just says no all the time and just becomes really obstinate and stubborn. It's like, that's not where we're going from. But I think just initially accepting that there will be guilt, and again, just tuning into where the guilt is coming from, why the guilt is coming, and just getting into that. I often think when guilt comes into the frame, we talk about it. If we were to talk about it in terms of being handed a prison sentence, for example, we think, well, what would your prison sentence be? Would it be a year? Would it be 10 years? And we just crucify ourselves sometimes, over such a longer period of time, when it comes to guilt. Accepting with the guilt that it's not our job we're not responsible or for other people's emotions, for other people's reactions. Yes, we might have an influence, but accepting, this is a hard one for some of us, is that accepting, that we can't really rescue anyone. We can be there for people and we can support people. I think that can often help with the guilt as well. Guilt's quite a big thing, but separating what's yours and what's theirs, I think, because when we start to work on our people pleasing, our really interesting stuff can happen in our relationships. So, people, again, professionally or personally, is that people don't like it sometimes, right? Is that because it means change for them, and if I'm changing, then what does it mean for you in our relationship? So people may well try and use guilt against us. In other words, guilt trip us. Emotional blackmail can come into play, and so on. So I think it can be really helpful to separate in the guilt what's your stuff and what's their stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That gives you a sense of context then as well, doesn't it? Of, let me just think about this logically.
It's just let them get on with whatever they want to do. Let them get on. I think that's a game where, a big fan of boundaries. I think that's a game where those boundaries come into play. Not just, I think maybe the easier bit. Not, it's still difficult sometimes, but identifying what they are, putting them in place. I think for many people, often the really hard bit is standing firm on our boundaries and having some potential consequences when people encroach on them as well. So I think if we've got all that tied down, or we're working on tying all that down, when people do try and lob this stuff over the fence, then it's much easier for us to deal with.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So let's go on to the quick fire that aren't really quick fire, but I'm asking every guest. So tell me then, the
These
first
made
one.
me. I'm sorry. These made me think. Oh, because I'm quite old now, and I love Friends, love it or hate it. But these made me think of that episode where Phoebe chucks the quick fire question at Joey.
Brilliant. I don't think we'll be able to
Okay,
recreate
go for
that, but you know.
it. Yeah.
So tell me then, when
No.
was the last time you felt confident? What were you doing? Who were you with? Where were you?
Okay, I can. Yeah, this one it has to be with clients. So very like even up till yesterday and last night. In fact, I haven't had any clients yet today. But I think in therapy with clients, I think just having that general sense of confidence, and the reason why it springs to mind is because it happens so often when you might think, well, you don't feel confident at all, but it's becoming confident in the unknown.
Yeah.
So in sitting with the feels with a client, it's in feeling confident that we're both finding our way through. It's feeling confident that it's messy and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's feeling confident that this is really confusing, and it would be so easy to feel unconfident, you'll know, is that a
Yeah.
word? Less
Oh, yeah.
confident in those situations. I think it's just being able to, this is such a cheesy therapist horrible phrase, but there's no other way to describe it. Holding that space with a
Yeah.
client and just feeling confident of where it's going to go.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So what's a non-negotiable for you then about your confidence?
So I work really hard, or I try to work really hard. Like I said, I'm a client of therapy myself, big development fan as you are, honouring what I need and my boundaries. It's like I've pretty much got that all tied down. It's something that it's never, for me, it's never just done and it's never just there. It's something that I'm constantly having to just protect, I suppose. So not apologizing for taking up space, trusting my own judgment, just putting myself, again, it's maybe a different episode, but it's like, my own self-care, for example, it's like that is really priority for me to do. And not, I help so many other people, both professionally and personally, but also what I need is important.
Definitely. Okay, so one piece of advice to turn self-doubt into confident action.
Right. So if you wait until you're ready, then you might be waiting forever. Start before you feel ready. Confidence, for me, confidence comes before the experience. Sorry, confidence doesn't come before the experience. It happens because of the experience.
Yeah. And I'm a big
Yeah,
believer that courage comes first. And then you have the courage
yeah,
to go off and do this thing, and then the confidence feeling follows. Someone else said to me,
yeah.
confidence is a feeling that's hard won and easy lost. And I was like, oh, yeah, I like
Hard
that.
one.
It's so true, isn't
Yeah,
it? So,
yeah,
my
yeah,
final
yeah, yeah.
question is then, what's one daily confidence habit that you would recommend?
Daily habit. I think maybe this is that recent mention of good old imposter syndrome, but I think it's this brilliant brain of ours, as Brené Brown calls it, that 3 pound weirdo that we carry around with us, does so much brilliant stuff for us, but as we've just been getting into for the last hour, can trip us up so many times in
Yeah.
so many different ways. So start to have that logical conversation with your highly illogical brain. If nothing else, just the results can be hilarious. But maybe when your imposter pops up, for example, acknowledge that it's only trying to help, it's only trying to do its job. Thank it and tell it to take a back seat because you have got this.
Totally got this. Oh, Chris, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Where, if anybody wants to find out more about you, where can they? Well, it's on the screen. Look,
Yeah.
therapywithchris.co.uk.
Yeah, so why not stop along the website? You find everything you need to, whether it's keep in touch or just get a little bit of inspiration, whatever it might be. All the work I do with private therapy clients is detailed there, and the learning and development work I do with organisations as well. Or I'm pretty active on my Instagram, so at therapy.with.chris. And always putting lots of stuff along these lines out there.
I love the one last night that was related to Kylie. Have to go.
Oh yeah, I worked on that over the weekend.
Amazing.
That was really good fun over the
Amazing.
weekend, because that's, again, don't get me started. But Kylie's just released her recent tour album, and I've been listening to it on repeat pretty much. I was thinking, Kylie's so inspirational. And like, not only has she been there for me for 30 plus years, but there's a song for everything. There's just so much wisdom there. So I thought I'll put my little pack together.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, look, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.
Thank you. Bye.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, chatting with Chris all about people pleasing. It's fascinating, isn't it? His perspective was fascinating as well. So I think it was so relatable. There was so much in their back boundaries, so much about how it affects confidence. So I might say to you, if this episode really resonated with you and you think you are a people pleaser or you have people pleasing tendencies, which we all do, right? We all have it. Even when Chris asked me, do you people please? And I hesitated. I was like, of course you do, Gail. Of course you do. But then I did go on to say maybe less so now that I work for myself than I did when I was in an employed environment. But if this episode did resonate with you, I might challenge you to take a moment to reflect on your own yes and no moments this week. What was driving your decisions, and how maybe can you start to include yourself in the kindness that you show others? Don't forget to go and connect with Chris on his Instagram page, or you can find him at Therapy with Chris for loads of fabulous insights as well, and more of his really thoughtful content with a smattering of Kylie, if you like, in there. I love how he uses some of the Kylie lyrics and weaves that through his work. It's fascinating. And songs are so emotive, right, as well. But if you are a people pleaser, go away and just have a think about those yes and no moments. And try not to struggle with the guilt. I was going to say don't struggle with the guilt, but that's easier said than done, right? You are saying no because you are prioritizing yourself and not others. So, and as always, if you really enjoyed this episode, share it, leave me a review, drop me a message. I love to hear everybody's thoughts. And until the next episode, I leave you with stay curious, be kind, and keep pulling up your big pants to build your confidence.